All right, good morning, everyone. We are live on YouTube this morning. This is our Calhoun County State of the Community. I am your host and MC for the morning, Jessica VanderKolk. I'm the communications manager for the city of Battle Creek. We've got a great lineup for you this morning to hear about what's been going on across the county in 2021 and what we are looking forward to in 2022. Couple of housekeeping items for everyone before we get started. For everyone who's joining us on the Zoom call today, that's our community staffs and elected officials. If you'd please stay muted while you're not speaking so that we can limit the background noise, that would be wonderful. Also, for anyone in the Zoom, if you have questions of our speakers today, if you could put those in the chat, we'll get to as many as possible. We're going to try to respect everyone's time and stick to an hour this morning. But we do want to answer your pressing questions if you have them. And anyone on the YouTube stream this morning, if you have questions, you can put those in the live chat. And same thing, we'll try to get to questions as much as we can this morning. And if we do not, we will make sure to get them answered and get that information back out to you. So, without further ado, let's get started. First, I want to introduce our leaders who are joining us this morning. We have Snyder, the city manager for the city of Albion. We have Rebecca Fleury, the city manager for the city of Battle Creek. We have Vester Davis Jr., the city manager for the city of Springfield, and Kelli Scott, our administrator and controller for Calhoun County. And we are actually going to kick it off with our Calhoun County Communications Manager, Blair, to talk a little bit about our COVID-19 response throughout 2021. We are still in the middle of the pandemic, and our communities are coming together for this event, and we've been working together all along, just like we talked about last year, to respond to this pandemic and try to be there for our communities. So, Lucy, I will hand it over to you.
Thanks, Jessica. I'm really glad to start us off. Our COVID response remains a valuable tool for ensuring that the county as a whole, every entity within the county is working together to help us get through the pandemic. At this event last year, we highlighted, working together on our COVID response, and that's actually continued throughout all of 2021. It's still continuing now in 2022 because our numbers are still fairly high. And so, that just really shows to me how we have prioritized our COVID response to make sure that the community is safe, and so that our response reflects that. The countywide COVID response, our joint operations center, as we're calling it, is staffed by the Calhoun County Public Health Department, Calhoun County government, and the city of Battle Creek. We have been pretty good at being adaptable to whatever the situation is, but throughout this, we've held joint operations center meetings, which right now are being held monthly, where we bring together organizations from throughout the community who have a hand in this COVID-19 response to make sure that we're all on the same page and everyone's needs are getting met. We also do joint information center briefings monthly, which are meant for the public and local media, kind of as a breakdown of what's going on, what we're seeing with COVID in our community, and what can be done to mitigate spread. If you want to go to the next slide. So in terms of how it works, we have our unified command team, which is made up of Kelli Scott and Rebecca Fleury, who we've introduced, as well as our health officer, Eric Pessel. And that group is meeting weekly. And that's been the case throughout this entire response to ensure that that team and that group is ready and aware of everything that's going on. As I mentioned, we have evolved based on what the need is. For instance, in the summer, our numbers were remarkably low, so we paused some of the more community meetings, but then we ramped those right back up as soon as numbers started to climb in the fall. We've held over 40 briefings or sent information releases about COVID and what's going on in our community. I would really say that this communication is one of the strengths of our COVID response. We really want to make sure that we are transparent about how this all works, what's going on, where people can find resources, all of that. That's very important to us. And so we have PIOs, our public information officers, which is Jessica and I, and Victor Jovanovich from the public health department, who are really dedicated to making sure that we're providing information about what's going on. And then, of course, the public health department just and our local healthcare providers just held incredible, very efficient clinics early in the year for ensuring that we can provide vaccination to all residents of Calhoun County. And that's ongoing, of course. And so this COVID response is ongoing. It's very much, you know, we really celebrated how we were able to come together in 2020, and I would say that's remained true throughout all of 2021. It remains true in the future as we continue to respond to COVID, and just shows the priorities that we have to make sure that the community is safe. And so that's it for COVID.
Thanks, Lucy. We will kick it off alphabetically with the cities and start with the city of Albion. So Haley, tell us a little bit about Albion's year.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. Good morning, everyone. Haley Snyder, Albion City Manager. I just would like to thank you, the joint team, for the continued efforts and the guidance as we continue to navigate through this pandemic. The resources that continue to be released are very helpful, and I just would like to say thank you to Calhoun County as well as the city of Battle Creek. So looking at what happened in 2021 for the city of Albion. Next slide, please. We had a successful first year with our service agreement between the city of Albion and the Battle Creek YMCA to provide all recreation programming for city residents. We had a large street project that was completed last year for 1st, 2nd, 3rd, Hartwell, and Wild Street, which resulted in $1.8 million of investment within these neighborhoods. So we're very happy to have that project completed. We also had a citywide sidewalk project to make all of our sidewalk ramps ADA compliant throughout our community. That was also completed last year. The blueprint for a better Albion. The Albion Community Foundation received the largest donation in the foundation's history in the amount of $2 million with an additional match of $2 million for a total of $4 million to go towards citywide improvements. So we are very happy to have received this donation and look forward to all of the projects that have been identified within the blueprint for Better Albion. The city of Albion was also awarded a 2020 Fisheries Habitat Grant in the amount of $105,000. This will go towards completing an Albion Dam's feasibility study. The Dream Build Rise Albion. This is an entrepreneurship program that the Albion EDC started to help provide programming for minority and women-owned businesses. This program has been very successful. They're actually in their third round of the program, and they have made connections with over 45 different entrepreneurs. So this program continues to be a great success. Next slide, please. In addition, the Albion EDC also launched the Albion Small Business Pandemic Response Fund for grant and loan programming related to COVID-19. Just another way that we could provide additional support to our local, small local businesses as we continue to navigate through the ongoing pandemic. We had the Brick Street Lofts redevelopment project, which was 404 to 414 South Superior Street. This was a $3 million redevelopment project, which resulted in all of the storefronts to be completely renovated with 7 new apartments on the 2nd stories of all of these buildings. And this is located within our downtown district. So we're very happy to see new housing located within the downtown area. The apartments are beautiful. They all have been filled. So we're very excited to have that addition to the downtown. In addition, we had the Peabody Block redevelopment project. They won the Michigan Historical Preservation Award for the 2018 Historical Renovation Project, which resulted in the creation of the Albion Foundry Bakery, as well as the Peabody Loft Apartments. We also had the Wildfire Crossing, a manufacturer gated home community recently opened here within our community. So another housing development that we are very excited to have join the city of Albion. We had the Sinclair Design and Engineering Expansion Project. This was $1 million investment in expansion of footprint and equipment within our industrial park. So we're very happy to see continued development within that area. And lastly, we had to wrap up 2021. The city of Albion submitted a USDA RD application for wastewater treatment facility upgrades in the amount of $16 million. And I'm happy to share that I actually received notice this morning that our application was approved for funding. So that is great news to kind of kick off 2022. Next slide, please. And now coming in the year ahead, the City of Albion, we are in the process of updating our 5-year citywide comprehensive master plan with the help of the consultant firm Beckett & Rader. In addition to the comprehensive plan, a piece of that is our economic development strategic plan and TIFA financing plan. We are also updating those plans as well to kind of tie into the city comprehensive plan. So that is still underway, and we're looking to have those both completed within the next few months. Our 5-year Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Master Plan was just recently updated and actually formally approved by the City Council at our January 18th meeting. So we are very happy to have that updated and looking forward to taking advantage of some of the DNR grants to the state of Michigan to tackle some of the projects identified in that comprehensive plan. Part of the Blueprint for a Better Albion, part 1 is our McIntosh Park project. We are very excited for this project. This will result in the installation of a splash pad and a playground structure within McIntosh Park. We're looking to have these projects completed by July 2022, and we invite everyone to come out when we are ready to unveil this new project and take advantage of the lovely new structures here in our community. We also have the Albion Train Depot project, and we have $400,000 to go towards maintenance improvements to the historical train depot here in the city of Albion. So we're also looking forward to have that building restored and give it a fresh face for 2022. And then the Albion Dams feasibility study. So we awarded the grant back in 2021. Now it is time to complete the actual feasibility study. So the city of Albion will be working with the engineer firm Whiteman and Associates to conduct this and to look at the possible options of removal or keeping the 3 dams within our city. So that project will be completed this year as well. And lastly, we have the Michigan Site Readiness Grant. The City of Albion received a grant in the amount of $39,900 to develop a master site development plan for 1917 East Michigan Avenue. And this is 40-acre, and we're looking to create a second industrial park here within the City of Albion. So we have many great projects to look forward to and very exciting things happening in the City of Albion. Thank you.
Thank you, Haley. That is a lot going on in Albion. That is wonderful to hear. Right, let us move on to the city of Battle Creek, and I will welcome Rebecca Fleury to the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Jessica. I appreciate that. Nobody told me it'd be difficult to follow the city of Albion. That is a lot going on, and I'm feeling a little bit of pressure. So hopefully you'll appreciate what we're going to share about the city of Battle Creek 2021, what we saw and how we ended and what we plan for 2022. So Jessica, if you could give me the next slide, please, or whoever's moving the slides. Thank you. 2021 saw the first full year of our commission. They all completed their first full year. We had 5 new commissioners. Boy, did they have a first big full freshman year. So we have appreciated working with the new commissioners. And I know it feels like a large learning curve, but they're doing a great job serving the city. And we expect just the same in 2022, lots happening. Next slide, please. In 2021, we had a lot of successes. So we switched our solid waste haulers. So any of you who have done that, that is quite an undertaking with over 17,000 customers in the city of Battle Creek. So we call that a success, because if you can get 17,000 plus customers to switch from one hauler to the other, that's a big thing. But really, we not only did we focus on switching haulers, but we also switched to an opt-in recycling program. And that has been really successful. So every household in the city of Battle Creek has a chance for curbside recycling to opt in, and that's been really successful. So we're appreciative of that particular program. I'm always preaching about that our biggest and most important asset at the city is our employees. So we love to lift them up when great things happen. It can be a little bit awkward to recognize yourself, but I was really honored to be able to serve the statewide association for city, county, township, and village managers as their president for 2021. And then it was also exciting to recognize our communications manager, Jessica VanderKolk, as the #1 local government influencer, as designated by the Engaging Local Government Leaders. So that's a nationwide recognition. So we're really proud of that. In the theme of great leaders in Battle Creek, we have just an awesome transportation director. Our transit director, Mallory Avis, has done great things with our Battle Creek Transit Department. And one of the things she and her team did was launched a countywide public transit collaboration called BC Go. It is a pilot project for on-demand service countywide that's being managed right now out of BC Transit. And this has been a wonderful tool for us to watch and to collect data kind of, in the transportation needs for Calhoun County. And we're using that data to have talks about a countywide transportation plan in the future. So kudos to Mallory and her team. And I hope that you have seen the BC Go vans out there on the road. They look good and they are really going from one end of the county to the other. The other thing we did, keeping in the spirit of transportation, is launched a shared scooter program with Bird. So I hope that you saw the scooters out this summer. Again, I did, and I think people are using these readily for a variety of things. And we look to see, we got through the first year, we've got some really important and helpful data about our first year, and we'll use that to plan for the second year. Certainly Bird scooters are not out in Michigan winters, but we'll welcome them back in the spring. Next slide, please. The city of Battle Creek utilizes the party-based budgeting process. This is a process where we allocate resources to those services and programs that are most important as determined by our community, our elected officials, and city staff. So this was the year that we needed to revisit our community results. We successfully did that through a public process, and then through 3 workshops with our city commission, we have redefined our community results and related definitions so that we're all ready in our next fiscal year to be able to score and allocate resources to those areas that are most important. You can find all of that information on the city's website at battlecreekmi.gov. /PBB for any of you who have questions or interest in learning more about PBB and how the city kind of reprioritized. Whoop, back please. Thank you. Oh, okay, there we go. No problem at all. The other thing we welcomed in 2021 was 2 new deputy police chiefs. We welcomed Deputy Chief Troy Gillian and Deputy Chief Shannon Bagley to the Battle Creek Police Department. We hope you've had a chance to meet both deputy chiefs. If not, you will see them out and about. They certainly have hit the ground running in their new positions and are working closely with Chief Jim Blacker. 2021 did see us reopen our buildings to the public. It seems like a small thing, but when you've had them closed for so long, it is a big transition. So we opened Flash Flood Water Park, and they saw a good season. Recreation, as many of you know, was impeccably hit by the pandemic. So it's nice to see that being reinvigorated in 2021. We are keeping some shortened building hours because we have the extra steps of sanitizing and cleaning the buildings to make sure we're doing our part to keep not only our employees, but our visitors to our buildings safe during the pandemic. We continue though to provide, I think, excellent customer service through our teams. We learned how to provide almost all of our services through phone and online, utilizing our tech teams and the wonderful expertise in our IT department. But we're also continuing to welcome people back into our buildings for in-person service if that is the way that you would prefer to conduct your business with the city. But we are seeing certainly a lot more people utilizing our online phone and tech resources to do their business. So hopefully you find the way that's best for you to conduct your business with the city. And then, we transitioned just recently to bringing our meetings back in-house, but 2021 saw all of our public meetings meeting virtually. And I must say that we saw an increased number of community members participating in our public meetings while we have been virtual. So as we transition to 2022, and I'll talk about that, we want to make sure that we're making some streaming options still available. I think the other big thing for us was launching our 311 Information Center in 2021. We did this so that we can even provide better customer service when you call the city of Battle Creek. So we hope to get to where you can dial 311 and get to that system. We're running into a few, I would say, glitches of technology, but you can call 966-3311 and get right into the information center. We have 4 staff members who are ready and willing and able to answer all of your questions for the city, and you can conduct some business there regarding utility billings and et cetera. So the 311 center, I think, was in a pilot year, and we feel it's been very successful. We look for that even becoming more robust in 2022. And then if you have not been out and about in downtown Battle Creek, you've missed some really beautiful sculptures that came in this summer. The origami sculpture display and contest was in the summer. And I was just in awe of those beautiful art displays in downtown. So if you haven't seen them, please make a note to stop by. Next slide, please. You know, I think one of the biggest things in 2021 for the city to kind of consider and discuss was the American Rescue Plan Act funding. We, at the direction of our commission, we embarked on a town hall, I would say, event to get out to 9 town halls to talk to the community and listen, more importantly, listen to the community about the impact that COVID has had on them, their families, their neighborhoods, and how they envision utilizing a portion of the American Rescue Plan Act dollars that the city has received. Through the series of that events, we did a youth town hall, we did a virtual town hall, and then we were in various locations throughout the city, really just listening, answering a lot of questions about this funding, this amazing opportunity that we have from the federal government. It's a one-time opportunity that we want to make sure we leverage and we use it to, 1, put the city on a fiscally sustainable path, and 2, to continue to meet the economic challenges that the pandemic has brought to our community and to our families. Through the town halls, as of today, we might have received 29 community funding requests, if I'm not mistaken, because by the time we did this slide, 1 more came in. So we have 29 community requests for ARPA funding that our city commissioners will be evaluating over the next couple of weeks. Throughout the town halls, kind of in our listening session, several themes rose to the top during those. The McCamley Hotel was one of them. Just a variety of activities around culture vitality in our city. Transportation was, of course, a theme. Important to have feedback loops in the community. So I appreciate, Lucy lifting up, the fact that we are all communicating as a county is really important. And even the residents in Battle Creek think that that's an important, not only internally to our city, but as a county as well. Food access and access to food, particularly when we know that we have economic challenges for our most vulnerable populations, our ALICE populations and others. And small business support was certainly important. So I think you'll see a lot of themes in a lot of our discussions this morning around support to entrepreneurs, both new and current, because we know the pandemic has certainly impacted many of those small businesses, as well as we heard the need for high-speed internet. So as we asked kids and families to work from home and to educate from home, we certainly have found areas where we have digital divide and we have gaps. And we know that you can't learn at home or virtually, or you can't work at home virtually without high-speed access. So identifying where those gaps are and working together, not only in the city, but countywide. And just to wrap that ARPA conversation, is that the city received $30.5 million in ARPA funds for us to utilize for city services, for lost revenue, and to distribute it back out to the community. Next slide, please. So far in 2021, the City Commission has approved several projects for ARPA funding. First being a contribution to the McCamley Hotel project in the amount of $2.5 million. That is in partnership with many community partners, and I know that the county will talk about that. The Convention and Visitors Bureau, philanthropy, educational institutions, higher institutes of education are all really partnering for the McCamley Hotel project to lift that up not only as a viable business in our downtown, but also as a teaching hotel, to make sure that those residents and students, young people, old people who have an interest in the hotel and hospitality business they have an opportunity to do that right in our community in a functioning business. So excited for that project to get underway with construction and can't wait for it to finish. City Commission also approved the purchase of the Dolliver property at 135 North Washington. For those of you who remember, it's the old U.S. Army Reserve Station. The city purchased that with ARPA funds in the amount of $815,000 to be used as an affordable housing development at a later time. We will certainly work closely with the neighborhood to determine what that affordable housing development looks like. And is it a combination? Is it mixed use? Is it affordable housing and childcare and businesses? That is to be determined. But again, we will work closely with our own community development department as well as our housing partners and the neighborhood. Housing has been certainly greatly impacted by the pandemic, and certainly a lot of our most vulnerable populations are impacted and are either unhoused or housing restricted. And so the City Commission realized and the city staff realized that a lot of these families have turned to hotels and motels for those what should be temporary housing, but have become long-term housing answers for a variety of reasons. But we knew early on and even before the pandemic that a lot of the hotels and motels, they weren't designed for long-term stays, particularly for families. And so the City Commission established a hotel motel ordinance in 2020, and in 2021 approved funding to do a pilot program for communal kitchens in our hotel motels that are using their facilities as long-term stays for families. What we want to make sure is that those facilities are safe and have the amenities that families and individuals need to use them for long-term stays. And certainly kitchen facilities are one of them. And then also improvements to rooms. So from the electrical component and et cetera, and ability to store food and those types of things, those amenities that we take for granted in other areas like apartments and single family dwellings that aren't necessarily present in hotels and motels. So our community development and community services team are working closely with the hotel motel owners to provide forgivable loans to construct those communal kitchens. And we look forward to that launching in 2022, funded in 2021, but really won't launch until 2022. And then the two projects that have been funded through ARPA projects are more internally facing. We have some technology upgrades to several of our city conference rooms so that we can continue to provide live streams for our public meetings and/or virtual options when we are able. And then, as I mentioned, recreation was certainly impacted by the pandemic. And early on, we used our Full Blast Recreation Center as a homeless shelter to provide, warm and or cool places for those to go and socially distance. We just didn't have that available early on. But that has certainly brought to the light that we needed to upgrade the air conditioning system at Full Blast. This summer, we welcomed our kids' camp back, and it was a hot summer, and to not have air conditioning in there was not helpful and frustrating, I know, to parents, staff, and kids. So ARPA allowed us to improve that facility so that we can have air conditioning in the Full Blast Recreation Center, particularly in our summer months. Next slide, please, Jessica. So while those projects have already been identified for funding, we actually have distributed very little of those dollars. We expect more of that to happen in 2022. We still have a great deal of funds that have yet to be allocated to projects. We know that ARPA had very specific defined, as our revenue services manager likes to call them, buckets. And certainly two big buckets for ARPA have to do with addressing the pandemic's influence on our own city services. So a lost revenue calculation that the city was required to do as part of the ARPA funding recently changed with a final rule that came out, I think, 2 weeks ago. Our original calculation was just a little over $7.26 million. But the federal government in their final rule came out and said it was a complicated calculation. It varied from municipality to municipality based on fiscal year, calendar year, and how they defined that, and how they defined what what funding sources could be contributed to the lost revenue calculation. They have just determined for small municipalities such as Battle Creek, we can use a flat rate of $10 million for a lost revenue calculation. So the city of Battle Creek will utilize that $10 million. That gives us flexibility to be able to handle any budgetary impact we see from the pandemic for the years that funding is available. So we know that our general fund budget has been greatly impacted by the pandemic for a variety of things. The biggest thing would be because we're one of the 23 local income tax communities, you're going to hear from my other fellow Calhoun County managers that's an impact that we're seeing. We certainly anticipated it, and we'll watch over the next couple of years the impact of that. Because if we have employees who don't live in the city of Battle Creek, for example, but they work here, and yet their employers are having them work from home or teleworking, then they would not be subject to the local income tax. And for Battle Creek, and I know for Albion and Springfield and others, that's a large dollar amount to our general fund. For Battle Creek, that's a third of our general fund budget. And so that's a hole that thankfully we have ARPA money that we can utilize to be able to balance our budget, when we actually feel those full impacts. And then we also know that we have a series of city projects that need to be completed that have been deferred during the pandemic because of the budgetary impacts to us. So really those are two buckets that the city that are internally facing that we will utilize ARPA funds to be able to handle. So 10 million in lost revenue and 7.82 projects that have been recommended by city staff. That include things like parking structures, airport operations and support, Bailey Park improvements, because these were all areas certainly impacted greatly by the pandemic. And then lastly, that last bucket, the 8.1 million, is what we anticipate of it being available for those community projects. I mentioned that we have to date 29 community projects that have been submitted for consideration of ARPA funding. And it will be up to the city commission to determine, how to fund those projects. Certainly the 29 are what has been submitted is more than the 8.1. So that's a difficult decision. The commission at their last meeting approved a scoring rubric that they will be utilizing to work through those particular projects to make funding decisions. We are going to ask for some additional information from those 29 organizations and hopefully move to making some of those funding decisions, as I said, in the next few weeks. But really, I think the commission recognized early on the community impact of the pandemic and really challenged staff to make sure that we did what we could to be as equitable as we could be in making ARPA dollars available into the community, as well as making them available to handle the impact of the pandemic on our own internal city services and budget. So next slide, please, Jessica. So coming in 2022, certainly all things ARPA, because I think we will begin to see even more greatly than we did in 2021, those projects rolling out and really being implemented in 2022. We know that I failed to mention, but the clock is really already ticking on ARPA funds because we have until the end of 2024 to allocate them, and we have until the end of calendar year 2026 to actually spend the ARPA dollars. So Linda Morrison, our revenue services director, and Ted Deering and I are always saying these are one-time funds. So we want to make sure that we're leveraging them and using them, to put the city on a sustainable fiscal path where possible. So ARPA in 2022, I think, will be a big thing. We also have some new communications tools for 2022. Textedly is a new text service that we launched just recently that you can get announcements and information on city business right on your smartphone. We are also transitioning our community newsletter to quarterly into the Shopper News. We continue to get good information that the Shopper is a way that many people get information in our community. Even though we think all things technology, get it on your smartphone, et cetera. No, there's a lot of people who still would like to read that. And so we are giving this a try in the Shopper News for our quarterly newsletter. And then we'll be getting city podcasts in 2022. I had already mentioned that the city is a partner in the continued discussion around countywide transportation solutions. And so we look forward to continue to be part of those discussions in 2022. We are also going to be issuing an RFP probably early next week to do a study of our EMS, fire, and police service delivery models in our community. We know each one of those have been impacted not only by the pandemic, but by budget shortfalls, by staffing shortages and staffing impacts. And variety and changes in calls for service for all of them. So I'm working with Police Chief Blocker and Fire Chief Sturtevant and Ron Slagle of Life Care to issue that RFP and evaluate consultants to come in and take a look at our service delivery models in 2022. I had already mentioned that we're back in person with our public meetings, but we are live streaming those also and still holding some of those virtually. Please continue to see the economic development growth in the city. You'll see construction. I hope you are seeing construction because I am at the McCamley Hotel. Torty Taco will be opening a new location in downtown, and lots of things in our corridors like Beckley Road and Old Lakeview and Northside. You'll see a lot of improvements from the economic development ring and Washington Heights. Excited about those things. We will have a local election in November for our city commissioners, and the other big thing we have, I said we're going to do a study of EMS, police, and fire. We will be completing our equity audit of our community, of our city organization from the HR perspective, as well as the community police relations in 2022. That should wrap up around May. We're excited about that work. We're excited to think differently about our diversity, equity, and inclusion matters at the city, internal to our organization and in our community, and how we need to be thinking about things differently as we make funding decisions, programmatic and community service and municipal service decisions as well. The audit is just the first step of a comprehensive project of this nature. It's not something that we have done in the city before. And we know the plan that will come from that audit, that is the next phase of our work, so that we lift that up in our organization and we make sure that we're considering all of our decisions through an equity lens. Speaking of equity audit and the work that we're doing publicly, we will also be continuing discussions on a citizens review board. Our Human Relations Board is chaired by Commissioner Kathy Zenda Wilson. They have been integral in lifting up the discussions around a Citizens Review Board with a broad group of community stakeholders, as well as the Battle Creek Police Department and the City Manager's Office. So we looked forward to those discussions continuing to find that right model for Battle Creek when it comes to a Citizens Review Board. And lastly, housing has certainly been in the forefront for a lot of us, not only for the pandemic, but as we see the economic challenges of the families in our communities and just the instability of housing, from the unhoused to finding a variety of housing options and accessibility to housing. So we know that it's important that we offer a variety of housing options, from permanent supportive housing all the way to market rate. And we need the structure to be able to support our residents in finding and connecting with those housing options. So you will see us lift up housing in a big way in 2022 as priorities for the city of Battle Creek. That might be my next slide, but I'm not positive. It is. So thank you very much for the time, and I will turn that back over to our MC, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, and I will pass it right over to Bester Davis and the city of Springfield. Please tell us all about what's going on in Springfield right now.
Well, I'll do my best to try to remember. Rebecca is a tough act to follow, as always, and so we learned a lot. First, I'd like to just thank Jessica and Lucy for putting this all together. You made it very easy for me to just send off some notes and some pictures, so it looks fantastic. So 2021, if we can advance to the next slide. All right, 2021 successes. Similar to the city of Battle Creek, we had a freshman year of newly appointed and elected leadership, including myself as an appointed city manager. My first year here in Springfield has been great, learning a lot about the community. We had 3 new elected officials that joined for the first time. They have varying degrees of local government experience. So hats off to them. We've learned a lot. We've grown a lot over the past year and look forward to continuing on. would like to move on to the second point is financial stability. You know, we looked at despite the impacts of COVID-19, the city of Springfield was able to provide financial stability for residents and our businesses. There was some really great foresight by our finance staff and making adjustments to our fiscal policy and pulling back on some of our spending so that we were in a better position to react to everything that has happened due to COVID. So kudos to the city council and also our finance staff. Moving on to the next point, Springfield City Council responded to members of the community by adopting regulations for adult use marijuana businesses here in the city of Springfield. We opted in to allow for both medical and recreational businesses. So we're looking forward in 2022 as well as a jump ahead a little bit to seeing how that all plays out. So we have a small district and we have our just recently implemented those new policies. So hats off to our city council for that regard. In the midst of the pandemic, we also saw that we would move towards new businesses blossoming here in the city of Springfield and our commercial properties reactivated by entrepreneurs. Two businesses that I wanted to highlight was Long Island Cafe, located at 256 North Helmer Road, and also the Sunoco gas station at 334 North 20th Street. Those are just two of our businesses that managed in the midst of everything that's going on and small businesses reacting to the impacts of COVID. They were able to choose to make their investments here in Springfield. So we're definitely supporting them and we want to see more of our entrepreneurs come here to Springfield. Moving on, I'd like to highlight a return of cultural events. I'm also joined on the call by Mayor Harry Burdett, and he was here during the time when COVID really hit us hard and we had to pivot and shut down some of those cultural events. So 2020-21, we got to see the Springfield Car Show and Halloween Trunk or Treat events return to Springfield. And if I could, Mayor Burdett, would you like to give a brief update on those events?
Yeah, sure. First off, one of the biggest 2021 successes was celebrating Bester Davis's first year with us. And he's been a great asset to the city. And as city manager pointed out, we were able to get our car show back up and running. Not as big as we had in the past, but it was still a big success. A lot of people had a good time, and it was great getting Begg Park back open again for the car show. Trunk or Treat held at City Hall again. Again, big success, a lot of kids, and we're hoping in 2022 to expand that, jumping a little bit like Vester did, to possibly include some local businesses and make a partial citywide Trunk or Treat event. And we'll see about how that goes. Vester?
Yes, and the last note that we looked at as a 2021 success was our continued investment in our city services and operations. Identifying that we are mostly a residential community, we need to hit it hard and make sure we're providing effective and efficient services. So pictured on the slide is our new water truck for the Public Works Department. We've continued to make sure that we have the best of the best in terms of equipment, and our staff are able to do their job effectively. Moving on to the next slide. So coming in 2022, I believe City Manager Fleury, she covered a lot of the ARPA funds and how they're spending. We're doing the same here internally. We want to be strategic in how we expend those funds. We look at them as well as one-time funding opportunities. So we've also used the term buckets. You know, we want to look at our water and sewer infrastructure, community development, supporting our nonprofits that offer a lot of public services as well, and in addition to what we do. A big one for us is also housing rehabilitation. We want to get those dollars back out into the community to make vital repairs to those homes that are here in Springfield. And last but not least, park investment. We want to leverage all our funds to make sure that we have proper parks that are great to be used and also in good condition with modern equipment, and make some repairs and replacements as needed. We learned through COVID that people need, or the public needs, facilities that are in great shape so that they can enjoy the outdoor and recreate as much as possible. Also in 2022, we were looking at wrapping up our water sewer rate study as we begin to this process of capital improvement planning and making sure that we have our rates at a proper level that are affordable to the residents here in Springfield. And I believe Haley touched on this too. We're in that same phase of we want to update our city parks and recreation plan so that we make sure that we are funding the things that the public would like to see here in Springfield and making those investments in our parks. So looking forward to that in 2022. And also continue participating in the countywide transportation planning efforts. It's been great to get educated on the needs of transportation for Calhoun County. So we are continuing to attend meetings, get educated, and then see where we head after that. We want to leverage our parks, our village funds through Calhoun County. That was some great foresight by the leaders here in Calhoun County and the community to see that this is a need. So leveraging our annual allocation of funds against our general fund allocation for further improvements to our local parks here in Springfield. And a big undertaking would be the M37 Helmer Road rehabilitation project. This stretch of Helmer Road runs right through the city of Springfield and is used daily by many trucks, vehicles, people going place to place. And it's time for us to see more rehabilitation on that road. So having a nice smooth surface, hopefully people will obey the law and not do speed too much on that new surface, but having it redone and rehabilitated is needed. So we look forward to that being a major project here in Springfield. And we're going to continue to attack our pension and other post-employment benefits. Right now, like again, our fiscal policy has been tremendous in addressing the needs annually, but when and where we can, we would like to contribute additional so that we can lower our liability in the future. And last but not least, this is a big one for us, celebrating 70 years as the city of Springfield. And again, I'd like to loop in Mayor Burdette about this celebration.
Yes, 20 years ago, we had a huge celebration at what used to be called Upton Park. Last year, we renamed that park to Springfield Schools Memorial Park to honor our past Springfield schools and all of our students and staff that worked there and went there. We're hoping to do something again this year to celebrate 70 years as a city. Don't know exactly where. Staff and council will be working hand in hand to figure something out to celebrate the 70 years that Springfield has been as a city. And we look forward to that in the future. Thank you.
And so you all can expect we will definitely do a press release and spread the word out there that we are celebrating our 70 years. So staff is discussing what the event will look like right now, and so we can get it on the books. And if COVID is still around, we're hoping that it's not, and so we're looking forward to celebrating Springfield. With that, I will pass it back over to the MC, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Vester. And actually, before we move on, quick question from the live stream chat. How much in ARPA funding has the city of Springfield received?
On that note, I will say I may be the 30th request to the city of Battle Creek, but we received $544,000. And I'm going to jump in line and say, Rebecca, if you got $1 million to spare, we'll definitely take it.
Thanks, Vester, and thank you, Mayor Burdette, as well. And we will move on and welcome Kelli Scott, our County Administrator and Controller for Calhoun County. Kelli, please take it away.
Thank you, Jessica, and good morning, Calhoun County. In a lot of ways, 2020 and 2021 like one big blur. And I think that our communications team, Jessica and Lucy, did a great job in the presentation today in reminding us of just how different 2021 was. Our COVID response shifted from focusing on all of the orders and restrictions in 2020. Remember My Safe Start and how we were going to follow all of the phases and watch the data and emerge in this really organized and data-driven fashion. And then in June 2021, pretty much all of the emergency orders were rescinded. So we are very much now into 2021. We shifted from that of compliance and regulations to guidance and advice and support. And I'll say from the county perspective, the state of the county is even stronger in 2021 and going into 22. And I think the state of our overall community is stronger. Calhoun County government, our commissioners have been wonderful leaders over the past year. Our Chair Steve Frisbee was reelected. This was a 2-year term, 2021-22. Chair Frisbee was reelected as chair, which again is a sign of much welcomed continuity and leadership. And congratulations to Commissioner Tompkins, who was just reelected last night as our vice chair for this year. And our commission works well together. They are elected on a partisan basis. And I'll say for the most part, when we have disagreements and we don't always have unanimous votes, they're not generally along party lines. So it's a good sign that your county commissioners are in it for what's best for the people of the county and not about politics. Our countywide elected officials, there are 5 of them: clerk and register of deeds, prosecutor, sheriff, treasurer, and water resources commissioner. 2021 was also the beginning of their 4-year term, and 3 of them were new. Clerk Kim Hinckley, Sheriff Steve Hinckley, and Water Resources Commissioner Ron Smith both got to enter their first year in office in 2021. Next slide. When I think about 2021, I want you to take away 2 overall themes, because we won't have time to talk about every single success throughout all of the county departments and elected offices. But I think about 2 themes. One is 2021 was a year of rebuilding. And that means everything from improving our facilities to rebuilding using ARPA funds and others, helping the community rebuild from financial and economic impacts of ARPA. So rebuilding, helping to rebuild our employees' morale and well-being and supporting them. And then the second one is, I will call Extreme Government Makeover. And that comes from a book written in about 12 years ago by Ken Miller called Extreme Government Makeover. And it was written right after the last financial recession that resulted in reduction in local government spending and employees. And his theory was the only way to survive and do even a better job serving the public was to think about our services as a series of pipes. And when you peel back the walls, you see all these pipes that cross and turn and twist and eventually end up with a service to the public. And we have to figure out how to straighten those and make the most streamlined process for delivering services. And that's not easy for government. It's definitely, I think, more difficult for county government because of our system with elected officials and the independence of the courts. I'll say in 2021, when you combined another round of reductions in revenues and reduced staffing along with the pandemic, we were very successful at Extreme Government Makeover. And so I'll just list a few of the examples of what our county government officials did to make the services to the public even better. Again, the sheriff facing his first year in office, one of the successes he will point to is being more transparent and providing better information online to our public, which again, happened across a lot of departments. So the sheriff launched a police to citizen site on the county website. This drastically reduced the need for staff to answer phone calls about, my friend or relative being in jail and what is the bond amount. You can also look up, order crash incident reports from that site. The health department also was able to launch telehealth and other service options, and those will remain in place to make getting the services that you need from the health department easier than going to the buildings and waiting in line. The courts were able to resume their jury trials during 2021. They've now since in 2022 been paused again for the next month or so. But again, the courts also were able to put virtual proceedings in place, and those will continue when possible to increase public access, to decrease costs for everyone involved. Next slide. Another thing that happened in 2021 was the importance of our parks and recreation, community development offices, and a focus on those improvements. So with this being the first year of the voted millage allocation for the new parks millage, there were a lot of improvements, including a really nice park and trail in Albion. I sort of liken it to the Enchanted Forest from the Wizard of Oz. It's just beautiful, and don't drive down a yellow brick road, but you do drive just south of Albion, and all of a sudden here's this wonderful place. Community development has started to really increase our involvement in economic development projects, some of which you heard the city managers talk about. A lot of times we fill in the blanks, and economic development is one of those instances, but we're seeing the blanks get bigger, particularly with the smaller communities, such as Marshall, that don't have the capacity to do, let's say, large financing for infrastructure, or what we're working on now with Marshall is the site readiness project for their really large mega site that's being targeted for some pretty big developments. Next slide. Some of our offices that mainly focus on those most vulnerable also had some pretty big successes to do things better last year in spite of the continued pandemic. Senior Services launched their Centenarians project with 24 participants. That was just a really cool way to use the resources we have without large gatherings in person. The Treasurer's Office is always looking out for the county and our costs, and changed banks, implemented a new credit card processing system that saves user fees. The clerk put an online marriage application process in place, and Veterans Affairs was able to help to the tune of $130,000 of veterans who needed emergency relief during 2021. Next slide. I'll talk about broadband in a moment. And last but not least, some of the projects that our administrative offices and the board have specifically worked on last year. We are also focused on equity, diversity, and inclusion. We call our committee JEDI to include the word justice, and we're just taking baby steps, starting with leadership training in that regard. A lot of work from our HR office and our IT office to put in place everything needed to support our employees, many of whom are still working remotely. We also ended financially solid at the county last year. One of the big projects was to issue $22 million in pension bonds that have a significant long-term savings, and we've switched now to 401k for all new employees. And we continued to support the Firekeepers Local Revenue Sharing Board, the Native American Heritage Fund. It had to continue to meet last year in order to award funding. Firekeepers was about a little over $5 million to local governments in our community last year. The Native American Heritage Fund awarded close to $500,000 to local governments and schools all over the state. Next slide. The county's ARPA allocation was $26 million. Because our community is so much stronger with the network of nonprofits and local governments working together, we've also received a lot of the same requests that the city of Battle Creek has, more than double what our funding is. And ironically, we also have approximately $8 million still to be allocated. To date, we've allocated 18 million of that, not spent, but allocated that for the next few years. About 3 million of that was to external organizations outside of the county, and they focused on everything from mental health support to helping the fairgrounds rebound from the pandemic and loss of revenue, to helping the land bank just get better situated to help with a lot of the housing initiatives that you'll see throughout all of the communities. And then this year, one of the things that the treasurer is working on with an allocation of $1.5 million is a program to help people impacted by having delinquent property taxes, and then the supporting services that they need to help them not get in that situation again. And next slide, maybe the last slide. The three largest things to come in 2022, the COVID response will continue. The health department is very much focused on that. Their staff are working very diligently every day to help. One of the latest things that they have done is to order through our Joint Operations Center test kits, thousands and thousands of test kits to support our schools who need them. Our school nurses are also supporting the COVID response at this time. So that will continue, unfortunately. Broadband, we have the county broadband task force in place. This year, what we will be working on, we have some consultants in place to start getting budget models and operating models in place. We have completed the internet survey that happened last year that will be presented to the Board of Commissioners next month. And then we'll be moving forward with some more practical plans about how to build this broadband. The county has allocated through our ARPA funds a couple $100,000 already to help with the upfront investment of doing this correctly. We are committed to do that. The commissioners are committed to this project. In countywide transit, last but not least, working with the city of Battle Creek and the county and building from the BC Go model, the county and the city managers and mayors are all meeting monthly now as sort of a steering team. And we will be building on the support that we have from all of the cities now that we are convinced that the need for countywide transit is not going to go away. We have been given some wonderful data from the BC Go pilot that shows the need for countywide transit, not just within the city of Battle Creek, but all across the county. And so this year we will be building on that support, and we already have a timeline that it will take a couple of years to hopefully end up with one countywide transit authority that will be able to save some administrative costs, but also consolidate the current operations and fill this really critical need. I think that's it for my slides. And I guess to end, I just want to say thank you to all of the cities who were able to come together today. We know that there is also a lot going on in the city of Marshall. They are, for example, just getting ready to name a new city manager. And I'm on the Marshall Area Economic Development Alliance board. So I know there are also a lot of things going on specifically in Marshall with their economic development projects. And so my final thought is just, I think to honor one of my favorite artists, Meatloaf, who passed away last night, we will just have to say for this presentation, in a modification of one of his best songs, 3 out of 4 cities ain't bad.
Thank you, Kelli Scott. We appreciate the final thoughts. Thank you, Kelli, for joining us today. And we did not have any more questions on our live feeds and streams this morning. So if you are watching this recording afterward and you have questions, feel free to pop them in the comments and we will try to get those to our leaders for you. I'd like to thank Vester Davis for joining us from City of Springfield. Vester, any final thoughts as we head out this morning?
Yes, one being, and coming in 2022, I've got this in my notes. We will have 3 city council seats up for election. So more changes. So I guess when we do this the next year, I'll have more update there. So 3 seats on city council. My final thought is a quote that I just read here this morning. If you enjoy the challenge of the day, you can have a lot of fun. So enjoy the challenges. It's been great. A lot of information was shared. And thank you again for this platform.
Thanks so much, Vester. I would like to thank next Rebecca Fleury, City Manager from the City of Battle Creek. Final thoughts for the community this morning, Rebecca?
Nope, just a huge thank you to everybody who participated in this today. I see a lot of elected officials on there. We couldn't do this work without you, so very appreciative of working together, not only within the city of Battle Creek, but all of Calhoun County. I will use one of my favorite quotes, thank you, Vester, is that positivity is a force multiplier. Thank you, Colonel General Colin Powell.
Thank you, Rebecca, and a big thank you to Haley Snyder, the city manager in the city of Albion. Final thoughts from you for the community this morning, Haley?
Yes, I would just like to share the city of Albion. ARPA was a big topic for all the other cities. City of Albion, we did receive $879,000 in ARPA funds. Similar to the other communities, we'll be having town halls to kind of determine what we will be utilizing those funds for. Right now, we had an initial study session last year with council, and we are focused on maintaining our infrastructure. We all know that the lead and copper rules are coming and we have to have those replaced. So we are focusing a lot of those dollars to make sure that we are able to tackle that large task here in our community. I just want to say thank you to Jessica and Lucy for putting this all together, and just thank you for inviting the city of Albion to be a part of this.
Thank you, Haley, and thank you to Lucy Blair, our Calhoun County Communications Manager. And final thoughts from you, Lucy?
Nope, thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to everyone who joined us this morning, everyone who watched live on our live stream, and everyone who is watching the recording afterward. Please stay connected with all of your Calhoun County communities. As you heard, we have a lot going on in 2022, so there will be a lot to watch. Thank you. Have a great day and a great weekend, everyone.